have the other members.
This is Patrick Bondel with San Antonio Family Association reporting live from Northeast ISD Student Health Advisory Council public meeting. Northeast ISD, NEISD, SHAC meeting, first public meeting in a long time.
First of all, I'd like to say
parent input, March 30th, 2023.
For everyone that has made it out here tonight. My name is Tony Kamen. I'm the chair of the SHAC committee, and we really appreciate everybody's attendance tonight. We appreciate everybody and their feedback. For those people that have already gone online and have added some questions for us, you can see these are some of the questions and the answers that we're going to have. I am joined here with my co-chair, Rachel Brodeen, and I'm going to turn it over to the chair of the Chase Committee, Mr. Ben Elliott. You got your
Good evening, everybody. Thank you all, again, to reiterate what Tony said, thank you all very much for making the time to come out tonight. This is very important as parents and for our students and for NEISD as a district. Most of y'all probably know, some of y'all may not know, HSAE curriculum was suspended for this school year. I know there's some confusion as to why that occurred, and we're going to go over all of that tonight, as well as the process for adopting new curriculum, the process for SHAC members being selected, the laws, the TEACs, etc. Before we get into all the details, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the team. I'm Ben Elliott. I am the chairman of the Classroom Health and Sex Ed Standing Committee within the SHAC. Volunteered for that, and didn't know what I was getting myself into, but it's important, so here we are. You just met Tony Kamen. He is the chairman of the SHAC. Rachel Brodeen, SHAC vice chair. Myself, Diana Parker. She is our note taker. Ron Scheibe. Stephanie Adams, who is the vice chair of the Classroom Health Sex Ed Committee. Sean Metcalf, not sure if you could make it tonight. He is our clergy community member. Katie Steinhoff, who is our district employee. And Emma Kelly, another district employee. She is the NEISD Health Services. And Katie, by the way, is the Health Instructional Specialist. So we have some good expertise on our committee, as well as some good parents overall. I have to say this committee has been very strong. We have not taken this task lightly. I want everybody to know that first and foremost. This has not been an opinionated or motivated journey on anything other than to comply with the law, comply with the TEACs, and get HSAE curriculum into our classrooms to be compliant and to be serving our district the way it needs to be served. So there's kind of a little agenda of what we're going to go over tonight. We're going to talk about the review process, the laws, the TEACs, give you a brief overview of what curriculums we're looking at and why we're looking at those. And then we're going to open up for you all to give some comments and ask us some questions. We're going to, for all of y'all that signed up to speak, we initiated that as a 3-minute time limit, which if you ask questions, the answer portion of that will also be part of the time. But if we get through everybody and we have time left, we can go back through again. So again, back to the review process, like I said, HSAE was suspended for this school year, and that was not a decision that was made off anybody's opinion or wants or desires. That was a decision that was based off 2022. The TEA created the new TEACs. The TEACs are basically a guideline for standards that students must meet to be considered achieving or passing the curriculum. Those TEACs changed in 2022, and the curriculum that was previously in place did not align with the new TEACs. So if that curriculum were to have been kept in place, we would have been out of compliance with Texas TEACs. So the district made a decision to suspend that. It was a good faith decision. It was based on not wanting to be out of compliance, right? It wasn't politically motivated or anything of that nature. structure. As you can see, we have a question on our board that had some concern as to why. Because yes, the Board of Trustees did approve that curriculum at the time it was adopted. It just was no longer compliant. So it had to be changed. That's where SHAC comes in. So SHAC, in 2022 or after 2022, the new Board of Trustees members came on board. Those trustees selected a handful of new SHAC members. One of those, I believe, Ron. There was, I want to say, 14 of us that came in September, of last year. And we hit the ground running. We came in and had to quickly learn the law, the TEACs. We had to learn the process that goes into reviewing curriculum, what's required, what is discretional. So that was first and foremost. We had to get our feet wet. We had to learn what we were dealing with, learn the review processes. Second thing we had to do as a committee, we had to create a rubric, which is a framework for how we're going to review each curriculum. What criteria are we looking for and how are we scoring it? That was created prior to us ever being able to touch or see any materials. So we created our guidelines for how we're going to adopt it, and then we got to see the materials. So as a group, we came in, we decided, since there was a pretty good amount of material to review and not a lot of time to do it, that we're going to focus on high school and 6th grade. Reason being is because those are the two levels where health is a requirement. Health class is a requirement for NEISD. It's a graduation credit requirement. Health 1, which is a half credit high school, or can be taken in middle school to satisfy, or summer school, and then in 6th grade. So when classroom health is taught, the district must offer HSA as part of that curriculum. Because it has to be offered in those grades, we chose to start with those levels. We also did review 7th and 8th grade, but we started with, like I said, the required. So we decided that we needed a very aggressive meeting schedule. SHAC and standing committees typically meet once a month or once every couple months, but because of the task at hand, we decided we were going to meet once a week. We meet every Friday. Sometimes we meet 2 or 3 times a week because of the importance of this task and how quickly we need to get it done. So we started deliberating 1 curriculum a week. We review it, we evaluate it, we come together next week, deliberate, and like I said, we don't take anything lightly. We have some very good conversations. We have not selected anything yet, but we have definitely made some really good progress into understanding what the curriculums entail and what it's going to take to implement them individually. That'll take us into the law and TEACs, which I'm going to go over in detail in a couple slides. But these are the law guidelines here that we have to abide by. The Texas Education Code 28.004, Texas Education Code 26.008, Texas Government Code 2273, and then, of course, the Texas TEACs, which is developed and adopted by a TEA, Texas Education Agency, that is independent of the law, but they act together, or they are both required, I should say. We'll go into the curriculum and then we'll go into the public comments at the end. So Texas Education Code 28004. This is the law that the state of Texas legislature voted in and was adopted by our governor, which, as it pertains, this code, there's in your link, I want to say you should have a link to the full education code. Well, what Chase is focused on is the part that pertains to human sexuality and abstinence education, and that is what we see here. Tech 28004, subsection E. any curriculum, any course materials and instruction relating to human sexuality, sexually transmitted diseases, or human immunodeficiency virus, or acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, shall be selected by the Board of Trustees with the advice of the local school health advisory council, and must prevent abstinence from sexual activity as the preferred choice of behavior in relationships to all sexual activity for unmarried persons of school age. Devote more attention to abstinence from sexual activity than any other behavior. Emphasize that abstinence from sexual activity, if used consistently and correctly, is the only method that is 100% effective in preventing pregnancy, STDs, infection with HIV or AIDS, and the emotional trauma associated with adolescent sexual activity. It must direct adolescents to a standard of behavior in which abstinence from sexual activity before marriage is the most effective way to prevent pregnancy, STDs, and infection with HIV or AIDS. And it must teach contraception and condom use in terms of human use reality rates instead of theoretical laboratory rates if instruction on contraception and condoms is included in the curriculum. So this law is, I know there's been some concern from some parents, right? Every parent's got a different opinion, I guess, on what's appropriate for their child. However, this is what Texas law says the curriculum has to abide by, right? Some parents are like, abstinence doesn't work. Okay, well, we don't have the option to say that because Texas says we have to teach abstinence first. Which brings us into the opt-in requirement, which is also part of Tech 28004. This is subsection I-2. States that before a student may be provided with HSA instruction, the school district must obtain the written consent of the parent. The request for written consent may not be included with any other notification or request for written consent provided to the parent, and it must be provided to the parent not later than the 14th day. So basically this says that they have to send you an individual permission slip lesson by lesson. It's not just to say, hey, do you want your kid in HSAE? It's, do you want your kid in HSAE lesson 1? This is what that lesson covers. Lesson 2, this is what this lesson covers, etc., etc. And you have to opt your student in via signature permission in order for them to receive that class. If you do not, if you take no action, your student will not be taught that lesson. So that's the difference between opt-in and opt-out. Opt-out would mean you have to say, I don't want them to do it. Opt-in means the default is no, unless you give them permission. That, again, is state law. That is not district policy. That is not SHAC recommendation. That is state law. The TGC 2273, that is, it relatively simply says that a government entity may not enter into any taxpayer-funded transaction with an abortion provider or an affiliate of an abortion provider. So taxpayer dollars cannot be spent or go towards abortion providers. That will come into play a little bit later. I'll describe one of the curriculum. Tech 26.008. This is also Texas Education Code. This is parental rights law. The section that I highlighted here is the most pertinent. You can research the entire content of this whole section, but the right to full information concerning the student is what really pertains to our consideration of this law. The parent is entitled to full information regarding the activities of their child, except as provided in Section 38004. Any attempt by school district employee to encourage or coerce a child to withhold information from the child's parent is grounds for discipline. Basically says the parents have to be informed. Parents have a right to information as to what their child's being taught. Some of the curriculums, there may be a note that says if you want further information, go seek an adult or a counselor or something like that. Well, we interpret this law to say that should direct the child to their parent. Which that takes us to the TEKS. I'm not going to get too in the weeds on the TEKS. Basically they're the state standard developed by Texas Education Agency, which dictates, or I should say, guides for what the students should know and be able to do in each subject and grade level. There's TEKS for every required curriculum, and every enrichment curriculum has their own TEKS. We are obviously looking at the human sexuality and abstinence education TEKS, as well as there are some TEKS that are individually listed under what's called violence prevention, which this came as a result of SB 9. Some of the TEKS overlapped in the violence prevention regarding, I want to say it was dating violence and human trafficking. We ended up adopting those into our committee. One of the other SHAC committees, the Safe and Healthy Schools, was evaluating those, but because of the overlap with HSAE and because of the fact that a lot of those TEKS are already covered in these programs, we took those TEKS on as part of our responsibility as well. Again, I've heard some concerns via emails and from parents that I've been speaking to that we may not all agree with the TEKS, right? Not all the TEKS may fit what we want our child to learn. That's fine, right? That's why, again, we're going to put emphasis on the opt-in nature of this program. If you don't like it, if you don't like the lesson, you don't have to opt your child in. That's really, at the end of the day, we're going to keep coming back to that because I know a lot of concerns are going to be related to the content. What do we want our children to see, right? We're all in this room, we're all individuals, we're all parents, we all have different values, morals, etc. And we all, we decide what's appropriate for our kids, right? That's what being a parent's all about. So there's no one size fits all. There's no curriculum that's going to make everybody happy. And at the end of the day, that's why it's so important that parental rights are solidified with the opt-in process. This is a sample of secondary TEKS alignment, just to kind of show you a little bit of an idea. I'm not really going to read through it, I believe. These are available, correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, these should be available on the SHAC website. Is that correct? Yeah, well, and they're on the table, right? So y'all can review those as you review. So this kind of gives an idea of what the TEKS, so as we're reviewing curriculum, right, we know we have to comply with Texas Education Code. That's non-negotiable. TEKS, basically the TEKS are standards that have to be met in a classroom curriculum that is taught as part of a required or enrichment curriculum. So Health 1, which is the high school credit, which can be taken in high school, 8th grade, or summer school, and 6th grade. Those are both levels where health is taught in a classroom, health class, right? So within those classes, if HSAE is taught, it has to meet the TEKS. Like, we can't pick and choose and say, hey, I don't like that TEK, we're going to not teach that. We don't have that choice. So that's another area where parents need to realize that it's not necessarily discretionary. The district isn't necessarily choosing to teach or not teach a certain thing. There are clearly defined rules and guidelines that govern that curriculum. Back to the review process, I kind of already talked on this. We learned the TEK. This is not an easy undertaking. I don't think any of us take it lightly at all. It's like a second job, like a first job. So I'm not going to really re-speak on all this. I think I already spoke on it all. Except for right here. So, okay. So in addition to law and TEKS alignment, compliance, another huge criteria that we're looking at is how adaptable are these materials for our district. None of them, there's not a single one of those programs that you're going to look at that 100% meet all of these criteria. They don't. TEKS, the programs that are here were selected because they were the closest to filling the most of the TEKS, but whichever one we choose, they're still going to have to be filling the gaps, right? And that's going to be the burden of the district to create the lessons that do fill those gaps, right? So What we're really looking at as well is how adaptable are these going to be for the district? How teachable are they for the teachers, and how easy are they going to be to customize for to create individualized lessons for our kids, right? Like, because one of our children might be opted into all of it. One of them might be opted into only 3 of 5 lessons. One might only be opted into 1 lesson. So it's hard to just take a book that has all the lessons and hand it to a child and say, here, this is your textbook, when you're not opted into the lessons that are in that book. So adaptability is huge. How can we deliver materials that the students actually see in a way that meets what their parents opted them into, right? Then accessibility. Accessibility is basically how easily available, how readily available are they for the teachers, but also for us parents, right? That's why we're all here, because we all care what our kids are being taught. We all want to see the curriculum. Can we log into Skyward and see it digitally? Do we have to drive to the sports park or to our student's school and read it? And can we buy a copy for ourselves, right? Texas law does state there are guidelines that must be met regarding accessibility, so that is another criteria that we're being very mindful of. And finally, once we get past the required non-negotiables, age-appropriate content is required non-negotiable, but is also subjective, right? So that's where it takes a lot of careful consideration. Like I said, we are parents. We do represent our clusters. That's why we asked you all to be here to provide your heartfelt feedback. We have open channel communication via email, via the Q&A, to where we can hear from all the parents that have a say-so in their kids' education. So age-appropriate content, then we evaluated for harmful elements. We used a pre-filled out tool. I'm going to address that up front because there have been some questions about it. We got an email about it, and I believe the district was asked a question about the tool that we selected to use to identify the harmful elements. It's called CSE, Harmful Elements Analysis Tool. CSE standing for Comprehensive Sex Education. And it analyzes several different elements that I have a copy of it. But things such as like sexualizing children, right, promotes abortion, things that go beyond the TEKS, go beyond the law, and border on controversial topics. So that tool was developed by a group called Family Watch International, which some people have made comments that they may or may not agree with that group's political views. We did not select that because of any political views or any affiliation with that group whatsoever. We selected it because it had good criteria. We all agreed as a group that we felt the criteria in it was at least acceptable as a basic standard. We did think about changing it and making it our own, but at the same time that we would have been the authors of something, when we felt it was more responsible to just take something that existed and use that. So if anyone has questions, that's fine. I'll answer more about that later. And then we looked for fair and equitable representation. We're making sure that no protected group, there's no discrimination, there's no diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're making sure that everybody is fairly represented, every group, gender, race, etc., is fairly represented and nobody's discriminated in. So that is actually on our rubric. We did look for that. So on to talking about the materials. So we started off with a box, a banker's box full of curriculum. We had Heritage Keepers was not in our box to start off with. We had Esteem, which is 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade high school, Choosing the Best. Again, all the grade levels of Choosing the Best. We had Big Decisions, and we had the Glencoe Teen Health, which is the supplemental HSAU curriculum to the health book, the health textbook. Those two, which you'll see here, are crossed out. Big decisions we eliminated before even reviewing because some information came to light that the publisher of Big Decisions was involved with a merger with a company that had an affiliation with Planned Parenthood. That affiliation, I hear later, we heard, was set to expire in March. However, the affiliation existed in the first place, and we felt it prudent to eliminate them from consideration at all for the sake of TGC 2273 that we showed you, and for the sake of any conflict of interest in general. Glencoe Teen Health, as a SHAC, we didn't review it. The teachers, I believe, they had it in their review pile, but I think they spent very little time looking through it also. It just wasn't a fit, so we really didn't review it, which left us with Esteem and choosing the best. At that point, we had already reviewed them both. They both have pros and cons, neither were perfect. So as a group, we decided we need more, right? Choosing between two decent curriculum wasn't enough for us, so we decided to go out and search for more. One of our members was part of a mom's group, and I guess So, sorry, I'm not a PowerPoint guy. So we went out and we found out about Heritage Keepers. We heard about it through a mom's group of other SHAC parents from other SHACs around Texas, other districts. I believe that included Northside ISD and Corpus Christi ISD being one of them. Corpus Christi ISD actually adopted Heritage Keepers, which is why we decided to look at it. So Heritage Keepers was very kind and quickly sent Ms. Jennifer the curriculum for us to review. So that's part of the three that you're seeing over there. Those of you who are asking why these? Well, these were the curriculum that the district, and when I say the district, correct me if I'm wrong in saying this, I believe that's Katie and Jennifer, the health team here, selected them based on the alignment with the TEKS, the percentage alignment with the TEKS. UT Health put together a list, I want to say there was 25 or so curriculums that they identified and gave a sort of percentage TEKS alignment, right, in their opinion. So our district opted to take the top 4 and the most aligning 4, and those were the ones the teachers reviewed. We reviewed the same ones the teachers reviewed because of the sake of really convenience and the fact that the alignment, right? The alignment is a big hurdle. We have to align with TEKS, so we're trying to look for the one that most closely aligns that's going to take the least amount of work to tailor, which goes back to the accessibility and adaptability that I talked about. So that's why. And again, more specific questions are welcome. We want to open the floor to y'all. Here's our rubric. I don't know how easy that is for y'all to read, but we created this as a group, voted on it. These are the curricula criteria that we're evaluating. We're doing one of these per person, per program. First thing we looked at is this a teacher scripted program? The benefit of it being teacher scripted, obviously, is consistency. Your teacher has a script in front of them, you're going to get the same lesson taught at Roosevelt, at Madison, at Johnson, at Reagan. It should all be relatively consistent because of that, and it also takes a lot of burden off the teachers for having to try to create their own lesson plans and figure out how to teach it on their own, especially in a subject as sensitive as this one. We then have, do we recommend contraception for this grade level, yes or no? That really falls to the TEKS. The TEKS define whether or not contraception needs to be taught in specific grade levels. that question for us is more for 7th and 8th, because 7th and 8th grade. Hopefully I don't confuse y'all when I say this, right? 7th and 8th grade health, or 7th and 8th grade sex ed are not taught in a health class. They're taught in PE. And because they are not taught in a health classroom, they are not required to meet all of the TEKS. So we would have the ability to say, in 8th grade, we don't want to teach contraception, even though the TEKS recommend it, right? So that's why that's there. We asked for, does the program abide by TGC, yes or no? Does the program identify parents as the primary resource for students seeking additional clarification? Which we noted, does that comply with 26008, which I showed y'all earlier? And then is the publisher willing to tailor their content for our district? Which that was a big part of our review process I failed to mention was we did get on Zoom conference calls with the publishers for each and had Q&As with them directly. And that was a big part of our questions to them was how customizable is it? Like if we want student-specific workbooks, can you make them, right? If we want to edit your videos, can you do that, etc. So that was a consideration for us. Then we go into each individual subsection of the 28004, which I won't reread all of. We scored them A, B, or F. A meaning they comply, B meaning they kind of comply, but they need to be adjusted slightly, and then we would go into detail. F meaning they do not comply. So that's basically the next 2 pages is just every subsection of that law, very detailed. And then TEKS compliance, what percentage of TEKS are met? Since we're parents, for the most part, we're not teachers, we're not education professionals, we're not necessarily qualified to say, yes, this meets this TEK or no, this doesn't. So we relied largely on the teacher's evaluation for that. The NEISD teachers went through and evaluated. That's what you'll see over there, that TEKS alignment. The teachers gave their opinion on how much TEKS are met. We followed their guidelines. Then you see the analysis for the harmful elements. If any of those elements were found, we note it. Give our comments. Again, it's fairly subjective. That's why each of us have our own rubric and we discuss as a group. Analysis for fair and equitable representation, that's a pass or fail score. How many events did we find, explain? And then finally, analysis for data collection attempts, right? That's a big concern parents have. Are there surveys? Is there any type of data collection attempted in the program? So we did look for that. That is our rubric. That is how we are evaluating these curriculums. And really, I think that covers the bulk of it. I'm going to save the rest for the Q&A portion, right? I'm sure I missed something. I'm sure you'll want to know much more. Please use your link tree. Take that home with y'all because it will be live. This will be live, updated. All of our information is in there. I encourage you to stay up to date. And then mark your calendars and please spread the word. We'd like to get a lot of participation at these meetings. Again, thank you all for being here. Next time I'd like to see 3 times as many. Mark your calendars for April 13th at 7 p.m. This time the venue will be Piper Bass Memorial Student Center, which is Jones Walsberger. It's in the Blossom facility. So that being said, we are going to open this up for public comment and questions. Ron, if you would start announcing names. And we're going to start with 3 minutes each. Again, if we get through all of it and we got time left on the clock, we'll allow additional time for you all to come back up.
Okay. So I'm not going to do a very good job of reading these names, but I'll do my best, so please forgive me. The first name on the list that said yes, they wanted to speak was Liana Benavides. Just sit here. Go ahead and come over to the podium with the mic. And just as a reminder, we're 3 minutes for the questions, and if we have time afterwards, we'll loop back if your questions, if you have more questions beyond the 3 minutes.
Okay.
And watch out for Emma over there. she's the type.
Oh, okay. All right. So at the beginning of the presentation, you mentioned that the Board of Trustees selected about 18 new SHAC members. Which members were selected? Or who selected them? Which trustees selected the new SHAC members?
I don't know that I'm capable of answering that question in great detail.
I can help out. So each of the board members selected four committee members for their cluster. So myself, I represent the Johnson cluster. And there's three other people like me on the three other standing committees.
So all of the SHAC parents were chosen by Board of Trustees versus school principals like it used to be?
That's correct.
Okay.
I don't know, but it used to be. We were selected by the Board of Trustees, that's correct.
Okay. Who selected the curriculums that you all reviewed? I know one you said came from a mom's group, the Heritage Keepers, but the other two, like how were these curriculums put in a box for SHAC for y'all to review?
They were part of a UT Health analysis that I think analyzed 25 plus curriculums that were public. They were what?
Evidence-based.
Okay, I apologize. Evidence-based, right? They have to be evidence-based. That is a big point that I didn't put in my presentation. So UT Health was sort of the primary evaluator for evidence-based and TEAS alignment. And I hope I'm not saying this incorrectly, but I believe it was Jennifer and Katie, or at least the health group within NEISD. Jennifer's nodding, so I think it was Jennifer and Katie that selected the curriculum that the teachers ended up reviewing, and the curriculum that the teachers reviewed is what ended up in the box for SHAC to review.
Okay, so I was reviewing some of the curriculum materials over there, and some of the verbiage is kind of concerning. There was about personality characteristics being labeled as strong or weak, like a strong person versus a weak person. There was a STD index card exercise where one index card has an X, and then the students are getting signatures within a 1 minute time frame, and then they have to call everybody up that was affected by this STD, which is kind of insinuating that students are just going to go have sex with anyone and everyone. You mentioned that if sex ed was taken in a PE class, that they're kind of exempt from the TEAS. So why not find something that fits a larger group and teach it in PE, which is required to graduate anyway, and so you can kind of get around some of the TEAS loopholes, or the TEAS requirements.
I don't hate that idea. I want to answer that real quick, but I'll tell you what, I'll answer your question at the end of this.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Who's next?
We've got a bunch of no's, and then we've got a yes. Erica Hanchi. Did I get it right?
Yes, sir. First, thank you very much to each of you for all of your time, your energy, and your thought investment in this. It is certainly a tremendous undertaking, and I, as well as many others, appreciate that of you. My question, I believe, is fairly benign. It's more logistical. In terms of the opt-in and opt-out framework and logistics of how we go about doing that as parents, this may not have been determined yet, so that's perfectly fine, but if you do know, how will the opt-in, opt-out options be communicated to parents, and would we have the ability to review each of the section descriptions and choose our opt-in, opt-out for each of them at the same time, or is it introduced every time a new section comes up? So really fairly logistical.
You know, I'm not the one to answer the question.
Can you hear me? Okay. So the state just adopted the opt-in policy. The district has been doing that right along. So the district was doing it before the state required it. So the district already has that process in place. And I believe the way it works is at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of the semester when they're taking that particular course, at minimum 2 weeks out, the permission slips are sent home with the students for the parents, and if they don't come back in, they don't get taught that particular lesson. It is, that's the difference between opt-in and opt-out. So that can be confusing for a lot of people. If you're opting out of something, that means that they're automatically in. This is the actual opposite. They are not included, they are not in this program unless you give your permission. And that is the way the school district, NEISD, has been doing it right along. So that's a little bit different from parts of the rest of the state.
Yes, and so your question was a little more specific. So yes, you have to opt into each individual lesson. The question I don't know the answer to, I would like to bring Katie up, is when? Is it all at once, or is it lesson by lesson?
The permission slip will have every lesson on it. So at the permission slip time, which is before parent preview, which is before the time that you would return the permission slip, you'll have the option to look at every single lesson and make that decision individually at the beginning before ever returning.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
You do that at once. There's one sheet for all of that, so you do it one time.
And could we make a decision to opt in or opt out after we have already opted in or opted out to certain sections?
You can only opt in. So I just want to make that clear. You can only opt in. So basically the parent will have to choose, I want this lesson, yes. I want this lesson, yes. I want this lesson. Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't hear that. But yes, it's at one time. If you contact the teacher directly, you can have that conversation with the teacher, but the teacher's going to go with what's written on that piece of paper with that parent signature.
Yes? Just to clear as mud.
I've got a follow-up to that, but I'll.
Okay.
Yeah, my time's up.
Next is Kate Sanchez.
So I'm actually a product of NEISD. I graduated from Reagan in 2015, so I'm here as just a San Antonio citizen, I guess. I had a follow-up question to the comprehensive sex education tool. What was the name of that?
It was called CSE, Harmful Elements Analysis Tool.
Harmful Elements Analysis Tool. Was that developed in Texas, or do we know?
No, I'm not sure. I don't think they're a Texas group. They are Family Watch International. You can look them up. That's the group that developed the tool. I don't believe they're Texas-based, but it's not surrounded. It's not specific to.
It's Arizona.
Is it Arizona?
Okay.
So yeah, it's. I guess you would say it's more merit-based. It's more content-related than it is compliance with laws or TEKS.
Gotcha.
And you can find it. I mean, it's. I don't know if we have it public, but you can look it up. The CSE Harmful Elements Analysis.
Family Watch International. Cool. Thanks.
The next person on here didn't mark yes or no, so I'm going to call her name anyway. And if you don't want to speak, just don't say anything. Amy Kirshmar.
Take the mic. Got you 3 minutes.
I didn't know if I was going to have a question or not, so I wanted to hear what was presented tonight. And I think at this point I will pass on any questions, but I enjoyed the follow-up that Caitlin just mentioned about the CSE, and I'll look that up as well. And so that was just used. At what point did the CSE come into play? You're saying you've got a list of all the, I guess, the different programs that you're going to review, and then in addition to the TEKS, you use CSE to further evaluate the content?
And actually, I'll take the blame for that one.
Mic's on. Hey, Dad. There you go. There you go.
Yeah, I introduced that to the committee. It was something that was shown to me by a fellow parent, and I liked it, and also a lot of people that I heard from in my cluster have concerns about, right? Again, we all have different means and methods for how we want our kids taught, right? But we hear abstinence doesn't work. We hear we don't want opt-in. We want everybody to get it. Or we hear we don't want our schools teaching our kid about sex at all, right? So you have a really broad range of. I'm trying to find it so I can read from it. But so comprehensive sex education, right, has kind of become an ugly word around the country. I'm sure a lot of y'all have seen a lot of these school board meetings with parents going up and reading books from their kids' libraries that have completely inappropriate things in them, etc. So, I'm sorry, it's in here. Can you try to find it? It kind of goes through a list of, I guess for lack of a better word, I'm going to use the word, this is my word, right? I'm going to take the blame for this. And make sure it's not grooming your kids, right? Is this it? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and read through it so there's no ambiguity. These are the criteria, right? The material would be considered harmful if it sexualizes children, if it teaches children to consent to sex, if it promotes anal and oral sex. That was an issue that we deliberated as a group on because some of the content teaches about it, right? In a matter-of-fact scientific way, because those are types of sex and you can get STIs from them. The word promotes is what we're focusing on there. We do not want to promote any kind of sexual behavior in our school-age children. Next, promotes homosexual or bisexual behavior. Again, hot button issue. We're not looking for it to exclude those groups. We just don't want to promote any sexual behavior. Promotes sexual pleasure. Promotes solo and or mutual masturbation. Promotes condom use in inappropriate ways. I'm going to finish it just for the benefit of everybody here. 8, promotes premature sexual autonomy. 9, misconstrues abstinence. 10, promotes transgender ideology. Again, promotes is what we're looking for here. We're not trying to give it when it's not told for us in the text to give it. Promotes contraception or abortion to children. Promotes peer-to-peer sex ed or sexual rights advocacy. Undermines family values and or religious beliefs. Undermines parents or parental rights. And refers children to harmful resources. So those 15 elements are the criteria of this tool. And again, you can find it yourself. Matter of fact, I'll leave a copy. I'll leave this copy out on the table over here so that y'all can review it and go download it for yourself if you wish. But to answer your question, I introduced it and then we voted on it as a group. We expressed some concerns with some of the things, with some people finding lack of equity in it, but we thought it would be better to use the tool as it is because we didn't create it than try to create our own and then be the authors of it. So.
Can you hear me? I want to speak to that too, is that at the end of the day, this was like a 3-hour debate that we had about this tool to use. And at the end of the day, Texas law has certain requirements, so essentially it kind of became not applicable if you're actually looking at Texas law. If you're looking at that, those things that were of concern are not being taught, if that makes sense. And that is also why we included the equitable section. We wanted to make sure that no student and no person in our community felt like we were trying to stigmatize anyone. That's not the purpose at all. And so, yes, and so we really wanted to make sure that everyone understood that we're not trying to target anybody, and we want to make sure that this information, because this sex education is for every student, no matter what, because all of this affects all of our kids. So we just wanted to speak on that.
And before I read the next name, I'm actually going to say something on this too. It was developed as a framework to help us organize what we were reading and gather our thoughts as we make our personal decisions to add to our committee so that the committee can make a recommendation. So this is, even as it's written, there's been long conversations about each and every one of these and how it applies to the different curriculums.
Like Stephanie, but this is the last point I'm going to make, and then we'll get to the next speaker. But like what Stephanie was saying, and it was a good point, is that if we teach to the TEKS, but not 1 inch past them, we won't really have to worry about those being an issue, right? So that's really where that came in more so, I think. But then we did later deliberate that our decision as a group is we're going to cover the law, we're going to cover the TEKS, and we're not going to go 1 inch past it.
Do you have the vote for that?
We haven't made one yet. We don't have a recommendation yet.
No, I'm saying, but you said your group voted.
It was unanimous.
It was unanimous.
We deliberated, and then it was unanimous adoption, yes. Next speaker.
Thank you for your question. Isabel de la Riva.
A couple of questions. One, in the Texas law that you showed us that you have to abide by, that's your category that you have to work under. It states if they choose to have instruction on contraception and condoms, correct? In what you are looking at, are you looking to introduce contraception and condom use in the sex ed afforded to any of those grades?
That's an excellent question. So in the high school TEKS, it's in the TEKS. There are guidelines that do speak to teaching condom use in an effective way. Yeah, it has to be evidence-based, not laboratory-based. So in high school, because it's a TEK, yes, it has
So
to.
TEKS has that as a requirement.
In high school it does, in 6th grade it does not, right? In 7th and 8th grade, I think in 8th grade it does, but that's where 7th and 8th grade is where it's discretionary.
And that's my other question, is who decides that's discretionary? Who decides that where they're taught, that is taught under PE versus a health classroom? Who makes that decision that therefore we don't have to follow the TEKS guidelines? Because that's very concerning to me.
So it's not.
Because we're talking, and I've heard you, we have to follow the law, we have to follow the requirements, we're stuck into this rubric. But then I hear, why don't we use a loophole and teach it, and that's concerning. So I want to know who decides that.
Yeah, so I'll address that on a couple of points. I don't know who used the word loophole, right? So there's a couple layers to that, right? So SHAC recommends, all we are is a recommendation body. The board ultimately decides what happens, right? So in 6th grade and in the health one, right, the high school health credit, because they are a health class, and NEISD has a district policy that health class is a requirement for graduation. Because it's a health classroom, in those health classroom, that's where it TEKS.
I understand that.
Right.
So the board decides that that decision is made by the board, the entire board, not just your committee. Okay, it's not the schools, it's y'all's board.
No.
It's the Board of Trustees.
The board of trustees.
Correct.
We are recommenders,
You recommend
not
to them.
decision makers.
And then the additional layer to what you're getting at, and we've had some conversations and haven't really finalized anything. 7th and 8th grade sex ed is optional altogether, right? Of course, and I say optional, Board of Trustees decides if it's taught in 7th and 8th. And when it currently, not currently, but was, right? The last time sex ed was taught, it was taught in 7th and 8th grade. And because those are not health classroom years, they don't take health in 7th and 8th grade. If they get sex ed, it's taught in PE. Because it's not a health classroom, the curriculum doesn't have to follow the TEKS. They still have to follow TEC 28004 regardless.
For the trustees.
That's just the law, right? The law, that the has to part, when I say has to, if I say it has to, then it's a law, right? It's discretionary at the 7th and 8th grade level, which I guess would be SHAC.
This got brought up in our subcommittee, our standing committee, because our prior SHAC meeting, that became a concern, was a potential loophole. And we kind of came back together and said, well, if we do 7th and 8th grade, we do need to meet the TEKS. Like, because So originally we thought, oh, maybe we couldn't, but we saw and heard the concern, and so our thought process then shifted to, if the board decides that 7th and 8th should have sex education, we do need to be adherent to the TEKS because we can adherent to everything else. Does that make sense? Like, this has been brought up, and I think that was our underlying.
That clarifies it.
Yeah.
Adherent to the TEKS associated with without
following.
Follow the rules.
Basically, yes. So if we're gonna recommend that it's going to be done in 7th, 8th grade to the board, it's gonna come with our recommendation that even though there is less TEKS for the PE taught in sex ed, we're still gonna recommend that it have all of the TEKS, even the ones that don't apply because it was in PE. If that makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for the question too, because I obviously explained that terribly. Who's the next speaker?
I got another no, yes, no. Fatima Schaff. Did you have no questions? Okay. Then we have Patrick von Dolan.
Good evening. Good evening. I want to thank you all for your work. I have to say, as a parent of 9 children, and that most of us spent all their time in the NEISD. It was back in 2016 when the previous SHAC made a terrible recommendation, and on May 9, 2016, Northeast Independent School District Board chose a terrible path. And so we pulled our 9 children from Northeast ISD and over this curriculum. So I'm ecstatic to hear and see the work that you've done. I want to applaud you and thank you for your good work. I do have a couple questions and observations. It's my understanding that Heritage Keepers is the only program on the U.S. HHS list of proven effective programs. Do you happen to know if that's correct or not?
So I know it is on the HHS list. I haven't cross-referenced the HHS list, which is Health and Human Services, for the others. That's a good question, Patrick.
I would have to actually look, but I thought Choosing the Best was also, it was also a funded evidence-based study in the same time frame that Heritage Keepers was in 2011, and they just updated their information since then. Correct, and Heritage Keepers has not been updated since 2011.
Okay. So another question, how does research compare between Heritage Keepers, Choosing the Best, and Esteem?
When you say research, do you mean third-party, like evaluation metrics?
Sure.
I'm not sure that we have access to all that data. We have what they claim, what the publishers claim. If anyone here wants to correct me on that, I don't believe we. So I know the Heritage Keepers has some data, but it's pretty old. I want to say 2011 is the most recent analysis that we saw on it. Decisions here. Yeah.
Well, of the three programs that are remaining, y'all selected down to, do you know which are listed on the U.S. Office of Adolescent Health for proven effective curriculums?
No, sir. Good question also. He knows that?
Again, it's the U.S. Office of Adolescent Health.
And that's related to the HHS funded study that was performed in 2011.
They are.
Yes, because it was all, because the federal law is abstinence first, right? And so then they funded in around late 2000s, 2011, federal government funded a bunch of different programs to see if their programs were evidence-based or if they had statistically significant improvements.
My last question, if I could, real quick. It's my understanding that Heritage Keepers is the only one listed on the U.S. Office of Adolescent Health as the proven effective. Matter of fact, just a stat from Corpus Christi, teen pregnancy rates are down 41% since Heritage Keepers was implemented in Corpus Christi. So I'd like to leave you with that thought.
Thank you for that, Patrick. I believe, Patrick, wait, is there more speakers?
There are.
Okay.
We got Emerald Belmares.
Hello, yeah, I'm here as a concerned community member. I first heard of this, looking on NEISD website, and I just want to say I have a few questions, but for the most part, I have a lot of comments on what has been provided today. So I just want to make sure that the SHAC is not putting politics before its students. It's not hard to see what's happening here. Majority of the conservative board is now being allowed to choose the people they get to have on these SHACs. They introduced what was the CSE analysis tool created by a hate group. I don't know if you guys know that, and if you guys are sharing that with the school district and with the parents that are going to be taking a vote on this curriculum and letting them know that this is the tool that you're using. And also, scraping out the big decisions because of its affiliation with Planned Parenthood, and this has nothing to do with Planned Parenthood, to be honest. It's just that people in this board probably don't approve of their values, and that's fine, but just because it's affiliated with it doesn't mean that they're taking any advice from Planned Parenthood. I think it's even banned from Texas schools. I don't even think Planned Parenthood could even have any recommendations or say so on what's being taught. So yeah, I just would like to make those comments. I also want to say that students are looking for a safe place to ask questions. This isn't a partisan issue. Texas supports medically accurate, age-appropriate sex education, abstinence-plus sex education at that. Our public schools can be a safe place that help families by giving reliable, factual information that helps kids make responsible decisions to keep them healthy. I'm sorry, I'm kind of stuttering because it kind of just, it's a little upsetting. So I guess my follow-up question is, how are we making sure that what's happening today is being communicated to the majority of the population in Northeast ISD, because 60% of the population is Hispanic, and I just want to be conscious that majority of the board don't look like me, and a lot of people don't have access to information or don't have the time to come to these meetings, don't have transportation to come to these meetings, they don't have internet access to access whatever is being spewed out by you or introduced by you all. So I just want to make sure that the majority of the people in this district are being aware of what's going on and they're being properly educated. How are you guys going to do that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of meat there. I'd like to address it all if that's okay. If I'm still about that one, we got plenty of time. So first, I think your first point was the hate group comment, right? And I'm glad you asked that question, right? I expected it to come up because we got an email to the effect, right? As soon as I saw the email, I immediately started doing research. I was like, oh my gosh, are we affiliated with a hate group? So I started looking, and the group that calls Family Watch a hate group is not a reputable group at all. They're known for targeting. They are known for being politically motivated, right? We decided that it didn't concern us because that group does not have a good reputation. Their adoption of who's a hate group is very targeted and very political based. When it comes to being politically motivated, everything we're talking about here is the law, right? We're not giving our opinion, right? That's genuine. All of us here have different ideologies. We're not all on the same political motivation. We've had plenty of debates. We've had lots of debates. But everything we've decided has ended up being unanimous because we all are looking at this from the best interest of the children, right? Because that is why we volunteered. We didn't volunteer to push agendas. We volunteered because we have children in the district. We care about what's taught to everybody's children. So I would really, really like to dispel the myth, or I don't want to say the myth, the perception that we are doing this out of political motivation, because we're not. We're doing this out of motivation of parents that care about their children. And honestly, I'll speak for myself personally, my viewpoint has changed a lot from coming into the SHAC to where it is today. So like you said, the breadth of what our school district is, the makeup of our school district isn't, my kid isn't, might not look like me, might not look like us, might not look like you, right? It's very diverse. There's a very diverse type of home unit, right, for each kid, right? One might have, parents parents that sit down and read to them every night and already taught them this when they were 4, right? Some may never get it if they don't get it in school, right? So we have considered all of those things, and like I said, tirelessly debated, deliberated, and unanimously have come to the decisions that we have. And just to be clear, we have not come to a decision on the curriculum yet. That's why y'all's input is so valuable. So that's those 2 points. What are we doing to get the word out? Well, we're recording this. We're going to put it up on the PE and Health website. We hope that everybody has an opportunity to see it. We hope that this room is, like I said, 3 times more full next time we have this meeting, because we do want to hear from everybody. The flyer for this meeting was sent out through principals. We would love to get some more principal participation, so please encourage principals, right? Encourage them to help us actively spread this word, right? Through their newsletters, through stuff that they send home with their kids, because we don't control that, right? Principals do. All we can do is we're being as transparent as we can by putting everything we do is on the website, on the PE and Health website. Everything we discuss in every single one of our meetings is detailed in notes. Those detailed notes are published. They're public. Everything we deliberate is public. Just because our meetings aren't like an invitation, like come on in and watch us work, because it would be distracting. We're very transparent with what we're doing in every meeting. Everything is online, and for the parents that don't have online access, you're right, that's tougher, right? What do we do? It's a little more difficult. Right. So the SHAC membership, right? We are appointed by our trustee that represents our cluster. The trustee of that cluster is a publicly elected position, right? So each of the 7 trustees that represent the 7 clusters were elected by the people, the constituent body, tax-paying body in their area, right? So in essence, we are a representation of the voters that went and voted for it, right? So there is that, right? And like I said, I wish we could knock on everybody's door. I do. People like you that go get the word out for us, right? We would love that. Do it.
Yeah,
I encourage you to do it.
I was going to say, are you a former student from Northeast?
No, but I am a product of Texas public education system.
Okay, and well, I do want to say, and thank you very much for coming as a product of Northeast ISD School District. We need people like you, and that's the reason why we're here, is to get input from the community. The community includes the teachers, it includes the parents, but it does also include the younger people who are products of NEISD. And so we are here for a reason, and like he's said this many times, we're not taking this lightly. We're not simply rubber stamping anything. We are meeting every week, and we have for several months. And so we value your input. We hope that you do see us as people that are interested and not see us for color or race or whatever, because that's hurtful. To hear that, I didn't choose my color, and I don't think that the trustee picked me because I was a certain color either. Look to your trustees and ask them, who have you selected? Does it represent that cluster of Johnson, or does it represent that cluster of Roosevelt or Mack? Look to those people.
Yeah. I just want to also make it clear that nobody was criticizing the committee of the SHAC in that way. I was just saying that we need more people who are reflective of most of the schools that are in Northeast ISD on the SHAC, so we can put out the word and also let these people know that they can apply for these positions. That would be great, but nobody here was trying to attack one or the other. It just seemed like he did. But also, just another question. So you meant, or I just want to say, I hope that it's not rushed either, the process, because I know that you said a lot throughout speaking. It's like, we don't want to develop a new tool and waste more time. We want to kind of get straight to it. So I'm just making sure that like when you're reading through curriculum and making recommendations that we're also like not trying to rush through that process.
I can actually speak to that, because I personally, when that conversation started, I was absolutely about making sure we go through the process. We're not rushing, we're actually just meeting enough times to have the work time capable of meeting what needs to be done. So we're not cramming 6 months of work into 2 meetings. We're having all of those meetings in a 2-month period.
Sounds good.
I hate to cut you off. We did go way over your time, but it was a great conversation. Thank you. The next speaker
is Kelly Gritskill. Okay. Oh,
feel free to correct him on your
yeah, please.
That's okay. I don't even know how to pronounce it. Thank you guys. I just want to compliment y'all. The thorough process is, it's a godsend. I've been very excited as parents to see how much work was put in. You can see it. You can see that y'all are incredibly versed, and I'm really enjoying learning all the ins and outs of the very tricky team. Anyway, I do want to ask, this might not be something that is as pertinent this year as it was in 2016, but in 2016 we did notice that there were financial connections, MOUs, memorandums of understanding between UT Health Science Center and the NEISD district. And I'm just wondering, would parents have an ability to see that paperwork besides having to go through the whole records request, which is what we did in 2016, to get a hold of any kind of, is there any kind of financial incentive for any of the programs, SA Metro Health, any of the big ones, and would we be able to see that?
So I'll make this answer short, and we wouldn't have any idea if there was, right? We have nothing to do with the financial aspect of this at all. There is?
I'll say something.
Wait, for an MOU, I think you're talking about if there's MOUs in place and things.
And other such, like any other kind of.
That's heavily vetted out on the district, whether it's involving this or not. That's comes up on our review.
And that's why.
But that's the side of these issues, no matter what.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you for that, because I didn't know the answer. Yeah. Why don't you come answer that on mic?
You want to finish and then I'll do it? I'm going to talk in a minute anyway, so I don't want to take away.
Yeah. So I will say one thing to the MOU comment, and that.
Just to make the comment for the record that I'm on a different committee in the SHAC, but that there is a disclosure form that has to be signed, and basically by anybody involved with the decision process, any curriculum that's involved to roll out to vet out these problems, and that's whether it's involving sex ed, other curriculums, whether it's involving SHAC or not. So that we've confirmed that policy is in place in the district, and we can have that confirmed where anybody needs that.
And that is the reason why Big Decisions was pulled, right? Because of the MOU with the merger, and that goes back to the comment that was just brought up, Planned Parenthood. It's not because we politically don't like Planned Parenthood, whatever your opinion is, we don't consider that. It's because the state law, Texas TGC 2273, says that affiliation is illegal.
Great, and then so just go back to 2016 again. So UT Health Science Center had several of the representatives actually sit in the SHAC committee. Obviously, this is a whole different ballgame now. They would come. So, are there presentations given that are kind of that aren't public? So they did do a public presentation, but then in the actual SHAC, subcommittees at the time, they were actually speaking only to that one subcommittee. So, do those kinds of things do they happen, and would we be made aware of it?
Are you talking about the publisher presenting to the committee?
No, any of the outside money sources, but the publisher too might be disagreeing.
So we haven't had anybody from UT Health Science come talk to us as a committee. The only thing we've had was our own committee meetings. We've had meetings with the publishers. So
those are pretty.
No outside presentations other than that. Yeah, everything's on the SHAC website. So like I said, you can go back and look at the minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next, we have Anna Ramsey.
Thank y'all for your time. I know you work hard. SHAC member on a different committee, and there's nothing more humbling than learning the ins and outs of all this stuff. My question is to kind of piggyback earlier, since this is by law an opt-in program, can you speak to the district's success rate on those slips, getting in that 6th grade backpack to me and back to school, and or how we get notified so that we can grab our 6th grader's backpack that this is coming? Because if it's a great success rate, great. If not, how do we improve it?
So getting it out of the 6th grader's backpack, good luck. But teachers do, we can only say to the teachers, hey, we need to let parents know. It would be a teacher communication at that point. The teacher saying, hey, we're sending these home. Our last rates were no's. We had 13,500, a total in a school year, we had 13,547 students taking health in 6th and health 1 and 7th and 8th grade that year, so it's encompassing all of them. No's, the no's meaning the parent specifically wrote in and said, I do not want my student to participate. That was 5%. So we had a 95% opt-in rate at that point. If we counted the backpacks that never made it home or the slips that the teacher did not get, that was an additional 9%. So great math, that's 14% total. So
is that 9%?
It's teacher follow-up at that point. Okay. The teacher saying, hey, either reaching out to the kid, here's another slip, calling home. This is just a total of the entire district snapshot. At that point, we could go and look in further and like what school has more. But sometimes it's just the teacher, hey, here's another form, here's another email, here's another phone call. But at that point, if we just don't hear anything back and it's day 1, we don't have any other option because I don't have parent permission. So we've got to get you out of course. So, but those are the numbers.
Yeah, I was just trying to wrap my head around, like, is this going to work really well, or
I know that we've been doing, I know it's always been opt-in since I've been here, which is 15 years. Yeah. And they get the permission slip 14 days before the parent preview, 14 days before the parent preview happens, or the time window for parent preview, and then they still have another 14 days before the first day of instruction to make a choice at that point. So we have a large window to try to get these back.
And just to kind of follow up on an earlier concept, is if I'm a parent and I think, oh my goodness, I don't want any of that, but then I start to kind of ease into the year and I go, well, maybe I do. Do I have an option to reach back out and change that form?
Absolutely, and that would just be a direct conversation with the kid's teacher, but it would have to be in writing and on that form. So at that point, you would talk to the teacher could give you a new form, it would go stapled together, that kind of piece. But yes, and like I said, you have 14 days to review materials before a parent preview. And then at parent preview, you can ask teachers and myself and our director questions, and then you still have 14 days to make a choice before the first day of instruction.
Can I ask one last question? Can you guys just talk through, I noticed on the presentation that y'all are going to have the ability, or we have the ability to go and look at these materials. Can you help guide me, like, y'all are wanting that feedback, and then what are you doing with that feedback? How is that going to help inform the decision-making process?
That's a great question. So the feedback helps us understand what is important to the community as a whole, because yes, we represent the community by proxy, but we're not the sum of the community, right? So even though each individual parent doesn't get to vote on what curriculum goes in, we want it to be known that to us, each individual parent has a voice that matters to us, right? What are we going to do with it is basically compile it, and based on the deliberations that we've already made, make some additional maybe customizations, or maybe have some additional conversation around what, maybe it doesn't change what program we think we're going to go with, but it might change, because no matter which program we go with, it's going to have to be customized. It's going to have to be slightly tailored, adjusted. Some verbiage is going to have to be changed. Those are things we already discussed. So things like that matter to us.
And I think just to be able to go look at it, there should be communication coming home that it's at the schools and the dates that are going to be available to look at. In fact, those dates are April 3rd, so starting Monday through April 21st. The materials that are here are also going to be on each middle school and each high school campus. The materials that will be on that campus are going to be grade level specific. So the middle schools will have middle school materials, the high schools will have the high school materials, and they have already been delivering the boxes of materials to each school. These will get delivered tomorrow so that everybody is set and ready to go come Monday morning. You will have the option or the ability to go in anytime during the regular work hours to view the materials and do it at your leisure. Take your time because you'll have that whole time period there. If the campus happens to be closed due to STAR testing or for some other reason, the materials are also going to be available at the Northeast Sports Park off of Wetmore. So you'll be able to access them there. If you're not a parent and you can't, you're not supposed to be on a campus, please go to the Northeast Sports Park to review the materials.
And additionally, some of the programs have digital companion materials, videos, slideshows, things like that. Those will be available through your Skyward login.
And that is also going to be
Same time frame as the printed materials.
and information will come from our campuses on that.
Should be coming from the principals. That's
Hopefully, fingers crossed. And
Start Monday. I haven't heard anything about it.
they just got them today.
Oh, okay.
they've been going, they've been going out and they've been getting the instructions on how to make sure that it's accessible for parents. And parents are going to be asked to sign a form, a statement in there, because these materials are copyrighted. And even if you took pictures tonight, please delete those pictures, because this is copyrighted material, and that is not, because we have not made a decision yet as to what program we're going to go with. We don't have, the rights to that copyrighted material.
Thank you, Rachel. Brandon Broom is the last speaker, and then we're going to go back to the front with Leona. Is that Leona? You'll be next up after Brandon.
I'll try to be quick, and I don't really have a lot of feedback thing. I'm going to try to pace this way just because I'm on the Safe and Healthy Schools subcommittee. We had some stuff that overlapped with this, but I heard a few things said early on multiple times, and I wanted to clear it up a little bit. I keep hearing a lot about who appointed you guys to the SHAC. Is this politically motivated and all this? I can't speak for everybody. I can't speak for every trustee. Okay, I was at a high school football game last year and was wanting to get more involved because I don't want to be just sitting on the sidelines complaining about things. I wanted to be involved. And I found a trustee, I was introduced to a trustee at a football game and said, hey, I would love to be involved. I had no idea what SHAC was. This is probably the most important, least known committee out there anywhere involving schools. And I think it's very important for parents to be involved. I asked, and they said, your trustee would have to appoint you. I didn't know who my trustee was. We found them. I hope. And I said, hey, put my name in the hat if you need somebody. Weeks later, I got a phone call. So, I just want y'all to know, the point of that is get involved. I wish this room was packed, standing remotely. I wish everybody from the SHAC was here. Not everybody in this community can be on the SHAC. Your voice is heard. The email is public. We respond. If you have questions, if you want to know what we're talking about in our committees, shoot an email. We will respond. I think it's very important to know your voice is heard as parents. This is a great avenue to get involved. So share this. We wanted the principals to share this. I don't think it got out there near enough. Everybody I talked to didn't know about it. So I would love more people to come in here and provide and more feedback, more involvement. Another thing that I heard a lot of questions about, is kind of who decides who's teaching what, where is this going to be taught? Is it going to be taught P and health or whatever? Because not everybody can be here and this is recorded, I wanted this on the record because it's not going to be appropriate and or time worthy to discuss this tonight. NEISD is the only district right now that mandates health as a class for the high school level, basically. Most every other district, it's optional. There's pluses and minuses to this, but be mindful of that. As a community, this is a chance to give your feedback whether or not you want that. It's definitely not a bad thing, but there are some drawbacks to it. Some kids have a curriculum pathway and they play sports, and they can't fit health in their curriculum without dropping something that they want. That's a valid concern many parents have. Other people say this is absolutely very, very important. And so one of the things that we are going to be asking for is some metrics to see, hey, since we made this mandatory, what benefits have we seen in our community? Are the kids coming out healthier? That kind of thing. But please take that to heart. Come to the next meeting, send some emails, provide feedback, provide suggestions, please. Thank you, thank you, thank you, every person that's here. Because you took time out of your day, your time is valuable. Very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I agree with that.
Real quick, I agree. Thank you very much for everybody that has come and made it. We are missing a couple of books. If you happen to grab a book when you were reviewing it, could you please return those, because we need to get those back onto the campuses. That way you can review them at that time. Thank you.
And then,
yeah, I wanted to give you an opportunity because we did cut you a little short. We extended time for some other speakers, so let you finish your thoughts.
I think some of my questions did get answered when other people spoke up, but real quick for the record, Family Watch International is a fundamentalist Christian lobbying organization. It opposes homosexuality, legal abortion, birth control, comprehensive sex ed, and other things that it regards as threats to the divinely ordained natural family. So that being a fact, and we're using a tool that they developed, it like the other parent said, it very much feels politically motivated what's happening here. You know, and heritage keepers, if the person who found that in the mom group had done a little more digging, she would have realized that Corpus Christi parents had a problem with it. And even though it was adopted, there were parents that were speaking out. And that curriculum has an ideological component as well. 3 of our trustees are known right-wing conservatives. The 2 that were newly elected were funded by a right-wing conservative PAC. There were 3 that ran, 2 won. So now we have 3 of these on our board. You know, I think that the district has started to make decisions and do things that lean to the right. And schools should be nonpartisan, because after all, education is available for all. And as far as being selected by trustees, not every parent has the opportunity to say, oh, you know, let me connect you with your trustee. You know, the way NEISD selects these people for these committees, you know, it's kind of like you have to know somebody, or you have to be on the PTA, because the principals are going to go straight to the PTA parents because they're right there in front of them every month. You know, and like the other parent said, our district is majority Hispanics, and you don't see that makeup in any of the boards. I don't see it in front of me tonight. I never saw it on council PTA. You know, and so why do we not have more diversity on these committees and these boards that would more accurately represent the makeup of NEISD students?
I mean, I guess I'll start from the top. We can probably all have a little chime in. Do you want to go, Stephanie?
Sure. I mean, I have been on the SHAC for 5 years now. I came on, we had just moved here, we're a military family. Our principal reached out and said, the trustee is looking for somebody, is anybody interested? And went to an email to the whole school. And I thought, well, I'm a nurse, like, and I'm not working, and that's a great idea, and that's how I got on it. So I've been down here for almost 5 years, and this is absolutely the most consequential year that we've had since being on it. So I mean, I didn't have any political ties, I didn't have any PTA ties, so I'll just talk to that. And I understand your frustration and hesitation, and I will reiterate that none of us have all the same ideology. I will say that. That's why our meetings are every week. That's why we talk for 2 to 3 hours every week to hash out and to really, I feel like this is a true testament to people of different ideologies and backgrounds coming together and really really actually having a collaborative effort. Like, we are not the same, but we've made choices, and we've heard each other, and we've all grown in how we look at this information, because every student is on our mind, not just my cluster, and not just the kids and families that I know in the district. I mean, we really do take to heart the logistics of making sure that this information does get out to everyone. And unfortunately, this meeting did not get to everyone. And I am incredibly frustrated by that. And so just, I understand that you don't see the makeup of our goals. I would advise going to the next board meeting and talking at a board meeting, because really that's something that's out of our control. We saw an opportunity, we applied, and that's how we got here.
We are all volunteers.
As far as the notice for this meeting, our principal, Johnson High School, didn't send that flyer until Monday. That is such short notice.
We're a little
when you say Monday, do you mean
yes.
4 days ago?
Yeah.
So I'm a parent at an elementary with a kid about to go into 6th grade, and so that's how I ended up with this connection. And I had the same conversation with our principal there, and our principal it was sent out by the district last Tuesday, so more than a week ago, and that's what the district sent it to the principals. That's beyond our control as the standing committee. Our principal put it on a flyer on a door entering our school office on Tuesday of last week. I had people and parents that became aware of this through the district website that it was put up on, asking me, how come we haven't seen this? How come it's not out there? It's been on the door for 10 days that all of these parents that asked me about it had actually walked by. And so when you talk about Johnson not putting it up till this past Monday, that's going to be get with your trustee, get that information to them, which they're going to hear from tonight. And that's a district process that needs to improve, because I think we were all frustrated at the dissemination of information on this meeting. We want Ben keeps saying we want 3 times more people here at our next meeting. We wanted that tonight. And so by getting the information out, we've got to get to our trustees. We have to get them to get the school district to improve a process of information dissemination, and then it will get out there. And as far as to speak to different ideologies of the board or different ideologies down here, there's 7 board members. 3 of them think one way, 3 of them think another way, 1 of them is in between. That dissension and debate is what creates something that represents the community. When you talk about the makeup up here and the 3 board members that you mentioned are one way, only 3 of us were appointed by them. The other 4 were appointed by the other 4 people that you were saying on the board that were not of that group. So this is a very diverse ideological group. And as we've had those, it's been able to keep us as a group objective, because as we have the discussions, we're able to put down some of the things that are in excess of what the T's say, in excess of what somebody is trying to push a political ideology in this when the T doesn't allow it. So absolutely engage with your trustee that was voted in your area, and that's how it gets improved one way or the other.
I have tried to engage with her. She does not reply to my emails. She will send my email to someone else, and someone else calls me.
And that becomes a voter issue.
There's a board meeting on May 8th. Is that right? Is that May 8th? Come to the board meeting and speak.
Thank you.
We got about 10 minutes left. Sir? Okay, sure. I mean, I'll give time after too if anybody wants to ask more questions to me later.
Is this really going on wasting?
My name is Dee Gonzalez, and I just wanted to tell you guys that when coming over here, I was kind of worried about what I was going to hear, because I'm apprehensive about the sex ed. But I just want you to know that you guys have made me feel a lot better about it. I I feel like you guys have done a great job. And I know that it takes a lot of time, personal time out of your schedules to come and do this. And I feel like that's the issue. It's getting parents involved. Everybody works. I mean, you know, it's real selfless of you guys to do this. So I don't want you to feel like you have to defend like why you're here, because I appreciate it, and I feel like you guys have done a great job working together. Okay, so that's all I ask. And my big concern is I don't want my son them passing out dildos to my son. I don't want, you know, rubbers passed out to my daughter. And I feel good at that. That's not gonna happen. So that's why I'm here. So thank you.
That will not happen, we can assure you.
We'll make the recommendation that that not be allowed, and the board can make the decision to follow the law.
Sir? Yes, sir?
Hello, my name is Dan Robles, and the 15 items you went through, personally, those align perfectly to my beliefs, and I think you're doing the right thing here. Obviously, I'm Hispanic, so we're not all cut the same, just as you are not all same thread. So I learned about this through my parish. I got a message from my priest asking me to spread the word. There's going to be this meeting. I'm one of the co-director for a men's group. There's approximately 50 of us. So I promoted it during our last meeting. Unfortunately, I was the main of them. So it's really up to the person to take the initiative and show up for these things. No one's going to go and grab you and bring you here. So if you want to be involved, you need to make an effort. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Patrick, did you have one more thing to say?
Oh, wait. No, I'm sorry, Patrick. You have to wait. Ladies first.
No confusion here.
Thank you for the opportunity. I am Maria Vanos. I am mother of Lopez and Maria, and also Richard, that they are going to be in the situation. I want to speak because I am also Hispanic, as you can probably see by my accent. And I appreciate your work because I know that it is really difficult to get a decision and all a plan or academic plan about these important topics that touch the values of every family. So I am. I have the opinion that the parents, we are the ones that have the right to see for the education of our children. So I just wanted to point that as the other Hispanic that have talked also, I'm sure that maybe we have not the same opinion, for example, about contraception education, but I see that the NEISD is trying to follow like the best good for everyone, every children, respecting also the right that we as parents have to see for the education they can receive and the ones that we don't want to receive. So I am completely in favor of that, and you have mine. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, Patrick.
I'll be brief. With the rise in discussion of RU-486 and chemical abortions, will there be any discussion in the curriculum, or will that be eliminated as well?
Abortion will is not in any of the curriculums that I've reviewed to begin with. If there was, we would remove it. It's not in the TEAC. It goes well beyond the TEACs.
It doesn't specifically say we can't talk about it in the TEACs, or am I wrong on that? Didn't it say that can't be taught, or am I wrong?
Yeah, I think it's absent from the TEACs. But yeah, that's something that we would definitely. Again, we're trying to go to the TEAC and not an inch past the TEACs, right? And that's where the comprehensive tool. I get it. The 15 items tool is a divisive issue. We knew it was going to be, right? That goes back to we're not all of the same political affiliation, because that one we deliberated on quite a long time, and it came down to. I think the reason why we all settled with it is it came down to it's not who wrote it, it's the content of it, right? And it's just generally like it boils down to age appropriateness, right? And to answer your question, frankly, no abortion will be in the curriculums that we recommend.
Chemical contraceptives?
As far as birth control and things like that?
Yes. Depo-Provera, Nexplanon, the pill, the shot.
So the TEAC reads, and this is High School Health 1, the student will analyze the effectiveness and the risks and failure rates, human use reality rates of barrier protection and other contraceptive methods, including, which means we have to include, how they work to reduce the risk of STDs, STIs, and pregnancy. That is how the TEAC reads.
Okay. You were addressing, Ray, you were addressing procedural on the opt-in before. There was a grievance complaint filed previously that got quite a bit of attention in Northeast ISD by a parent where a child got opted in without their permission. Can you answer how procedurally, how NEISD is reacting to make sure that the parent doesn't if the parent opts them out or doesn't sign the form, that they're not included? Do you know if they're addressing that due to that grievance?
I do not, and I don't know when that happened, or is that a current thing going on?
It was last year.
Okay, I don't know that, but Katie would, I'm sure.
Can't speak to the grievance, but essentially we have that 14-day window before the parent preview. Once the parent preview happens, the student has 14 days, so the parent has 14 days to return that permission slip. Teachers keep their own notes, and then we're requesting all of those parent permission slips and teacher record of their return.
Okay, so you believe that if a child is not opted out, or the form's not turned in or opted out, that they won't be included? So
a child cannot opt out. A parent must opt their child in. A non-return form is an automatic non-opt-in, and the student may not receive instruction.
Perfect. So that was a grievance in the last couple of years that got lots of attention, and that the child was included even though the form wasn't turned in, or was misplaced, or
I can't speak to that. This is before our time and before these SHAC members have been dealing with this curriculum.
Great, thank you. Last thing, I know there's a comment made about complaints in Corpus Christi and supposed, but I would ask for that evidence. There is 10,000 students have gone through Corpus Christi's Heritage Keepers program, and officially only one parent has complained. And parents love Heritage Keepers because it's holistic and effective for all students. So I encourage you to look into that for evidence on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I leave this with
Fatima had a question.
It's not really a question. I just want to share my story because I kind of feel what they feel about this. I'm Hispanic, Mexican, and when I started going to one of the schools for my kids, they were in kinder, we didn't receive any communication in Spanish, and 80% of the population was Hispanic. And I saw many parents just like sitting like this, not even talking to me. And many of them, hundreds of them, is because they don't speak English, or they don't speak well English as they said. So my first goal was, I'm going to make them to share any information in in Spanish, even if I have to volunteer to translate those documents. So I did it. And I'm saying this because, yeah, at some point we feel like, you know, I don't want to see all güeritos everywhere, right? I want to see different people. It's not about word, it's just like you are blonde. But it's how we say güeritos. So, yeah, it's not offensive, I promise. So I started volunteering when my kids were in kindergarten. Now my oldest is in college. So I have since 2008 probably. I have been in PTA because when I wasn't working, I want to practice my English, get involved with school, and I couldn't wait until they get back home. So beginning the school gave me an opportunity to see them. And then I started working full-time. I work for HED and also work for a Mexican university, teaching Hispanic people here in San Antonio. So I'm saying this because when they call me to serve in the SHAC committee this year, Ms. Derrick, who is my trustee in the district I belong, I'm from the Roosevelt cluster. I was surprised. I don't know her. I never have talked to her. But I was nominated because she talked to a few principals. Through the years, I have met a lot of principals. Not just because PTA, because when we have an issue, I'm sure that the principal knows who I am and who are my kids. So when I have an issue, I go straight with them and I express, hey, I'm concerned about this, how you are, you know, handling this. Then I listen and then I see if I can help. If I could, for sure, I volunteer for that. So I don't have any political views. I mean, I would vote for the individual that wants to work for our country and wants to do a good job. I don't care what the party is. In the past, I have named both parties, and then they didn't let me alone. They keep calling every year, so I stopped donating. I just support it. So I'm just sharing this because I feel you. But in my, at least in my district, I feel like we are represented, and any information I get, I still sharing with those parents that they still, well, I still struggling sometimes with the English, but there are people that really struggle really, really bad, and I still handle that information. So there is no better people to do that than ourselves. So if you are here, it's because you are passionate about it, which is great. Now our job is to go out and bring those parents to fill these seats, because these voices are not enough. I want to change things, and I have the same concerns you have, is why I came. It's a long day for me, but I don't care. I really want to know what they are doing. And by the way, because I'm part of the SHAC committee, I have seen how these people are working so hard. I feel, and I'm in the nutrition committee, and we talked about this yesterday. We feel kind of like bad because you are working so hard, but we will too. But really, thank you, because we can make one single idea, right? Because there are many minds. But what you are doing is great, and this is volunteer. No one gets paid for anything. It's just that concern and that care we have for our kids, students, and communities. So I just want to share that.
Thank you so much. That brings us to the end of the meeting. We're at 9 o'clock. Thank you so much for everybody that spoke, that showed up to support, to review, to be a part of the process. I just want to say before you all leave, please make sure that all the materials are on the table. No materials are allowed to leave, and because they are copyrighted and the district has not made a decision or purchased any curriculums, we don't own that content. Any photos that you may have taken, we urge you to delete, because that would be in a violation of the copyright laws of the publishers. Other than that, thank y'all so much again. Please come to the next meeting. Please spread the word far and wide. We want everybody's opinion. And hope to see y'all April 13th at 7 p.m. Thank you. Also, email the SHAC any questions that come up along the way. Encourage your friends to do the same. The SHAC at NEISD. We will reply.
hang on to your QR codes as well. And if y'all have questions or want to speak to any of us afterwards, we'll make ourselves available. Thank y'all so much for coming.
This is the QR code you can scan for the resources that they're using, sex ed curriculum.
And just as a reminder, using your QR code, you can still use it to upload questions, and we will continue to answer those questions throughout the next couple of weeks until our next meeting. Thank y'all so much.
Hey, Kelly, come here a second. So come here. Okay, so this is Kelly Greshel. She's worked long and hard with the San Antonio Family Association and has been there since 2015 when we really began fighting a very bad consideration by the Northeast Independent School District, SHAC, and then the board, where they made a decision on May 9, 2016 to choose Planned Parenthood California's sex ed curriculum under a rebranded company called ETR, Draw the Line, Respect the Line, which is promoted and condoned and promoted sexual intercourse for children, anal, oral, and vaginal. And so she's been on the front line fighting this in. So Kelly, what was your thoughts about tonight? Come as close as you can so we can hear you, because there's a lot of room, a lot of noise.
Well, I'm most impressed with how much research and how thorough the entire SHAC had to be to really understand in full what the law says, what the chiefs say, how it is that they are going to discern which things are going to be the parameters and which things they're going to have to look at. So I was impressed with that. So I think I'm very hopeful that in the past it just seems very much like a, oh, hey, it's a rubber stamp, whichever one we like, whichever one is the least expensive, or whatever the criteria was at that time. Now this time it does seem like everyone has had some debates. They've really narrowed it down, and it seems like they're focusing on the well-being of our children and to the letter of the law, which is really what we ask for. We don't ask for anything unusual, just that minors can't consent to sex because that's illegal.
So one of the things they did back in 2015 and 2016 was they took input from San Antonio Metropolitan Health District, which is the medical director for Metro Health is the former abortionist for Planned Parenthood South Texas, June DeWoo, and they took and basically they didn't take anything from the parents. They took everything from Metro Health in consideration for the curriculums. They have not taken any consideration from them now, nor any one that had a direct affiliation with Planned Parenthood, which is an abortion business. And so great decision on their part and to follow state law that is that. And so were you satisfied with your answer that you asked about memorandum of understandings with UT Health or San Antonio Metro Health or anything like that? Were you satisfied with that?
Money's always a concern because we do want to save money, but at the same time we can't create these biases within such an important thing like choosing a curriculum, because it is going to bias things if money was if they can get discounts, which is what was happening in 2016. So I was satisfied with the answer. I hope that the truth in 20 years from now that answer is correct and nothing changes, and through this whole process there wasn't a loophole found, something like that. It's just I'm always a little bit concerned about whenever money's involved and who gets to review it and who's in charge of that, what's the oversight, and who double checks the checkers and who double checks those checkers.
So one of the things, though, we have to take into a net cost, because what cost us now a little bit might cost us a lot in 20 years from now, because what we're seeing is what cost us very little when we took free independent consulting, supposed independent consulting from San Antonio Metropolitan Health District and UTL Health Science Center, that although they had a financial arrangement with UTL Health Science Center, but before that they picked curriculums that are now leading the nation, certainly the state, where Northeast ISD has the highest, one of the highest incidents of inappropriate teacher-student relations in the state. And so those people are a product of NEISD's sex education curriculum prior. And now we're seeing, now those young people are now, some of them are teaching, and whether they be from here or from across the state. So we're seeing a major shift here that might cost us a little bit now, but it'll save us a lot in mental health, psychological, emotional health later on with these children who now we will grow up one day.
Exactly. I love that they're focusing on, well, I think it's ironic that NEISD's had all these problems with their past bad curriculums and sexual incidents between teachers and students, when the whole purpose was to not have anything like that happen. And then, of course, it skyrocketed because fruit of the poison tree, it wasn't good to begin with. You can't.
Well, teaching something that's vice-ridden and not virtuous will foster other bad actions.
Well, you're introducing inappropriate conversation, situations. I mean, that curriculum had a lot of role plays that were very inappropriate, and so bringing that in and having the teachers practice it with the students kind of lays that groundwork of, oh, I guess this is okay, all the schools are doing it, all the teachers are okay with it, and then that can blur the line with that consent very quickly, and appropriateness and legal.
Yeah, the role playing was unbelievable that it was that way. So they whittled it down. They kicked out big decisions, which was the high school curriculum, which is fantastic. That curriculum even told students that if their religion told them that sex before marriage was bad, then their religion was oppressing them. I mean, so we're looking at, that was the early on version of that, and how ridiculous. And this curriculum is supposed to be representative of the parents and the people in this, and it certainly wasn't in that case. So we're ecstatic about that. It's whittled down to 3: to heritage keepers, esteem, and then choose the best. And so Choose the Best has been in Northeast ISD before, and while I'm thinking about it, Northeast ISD has done a good job of promoting virtue. From the beginning, the early years, kindergarten, K through 12, they do a good job of promoting virtue in the 7 habits, but this is the one area of lifestyle choices that they veer way off the path. They take a 90-degree turn and have in the past, and so it's so refreshing to see them getting back on the path of virtue for this. So, do you have any thoughts on those 3 manufacturers of curriculums? Heritage Keepers, Esteem. I forget the first part of Esteem, and then the third one of Choose the Best.
Well, definitely Heritage Keepers has proven in Corpus Christi. I mean, the numbers don't lie. I believe that you quoted, 47% decrease in teen pregnancies.
Right.
And you're just, I hate to say it, but unless you absolutely teach at the highest standard, which Heritage Keepers does by promoting abstinence as the only way to children who are not legally allowed to have sex.
Right.
Then you're giving a subpar product. It's just this isn't as good as it could be. Northeast ISD is all about being the best and leading other schools. So they absolutely have to pick a star standard. And so Heritage Keepers has put itself in the front running very early on, has kept itself there, and continues to do good work. So.
Right. So I thought it was interesting that one of the people that were castigating, she seemed like very much a very strong progressive, who was castigating not only Family Watch International, also Heritage Keepers, also castigated 3 of the board members who were duly elected by their constituents, and then some right-wing groups, and then also I think it was a Christian right-wing group. She had threw out all these different accusations, then threw out stat that there's tons of people that are protesting in Corpus Christi over heritage keepers. So it's one of the things we did talk about tonight, and went back up there to note was that there's only one official complaint of heritage keepers and over 10,000 children that have gone through the program. So I thought that was interesting that we have to be careful in taking people's accusations, and you have to ask them for their evidence too and their proof, because they can make wild assertions that are sometimes baseless to disrupt things.
Look, I mean, it was a self-defeating point in the sense that she's asking that Corpus Christi's Heritage Keepers adoption was not representative of the parents. However, the parents were the ones who brought it in. So it's either, you can't have both. It's either, a bad political move where the school district just jams the curriculum in, or it's all the parents deciding, the majority at least, that this is what we want. And things change and fluctuate. I'm glad she's here. I'm glad everybody comes out with a strong opinion. However, really check those facts, because, like you said, it was only one complaint. So.
Well, and then you can find that on from them officially. The other thing is, in making those assertions, that we have to be careful that we're not participating in grooming of children, because right now Northeast ISD, I'm glad that they took away all the sex ed for this year, but they have been participating in grooming of children, sexual grooming of children. There's been other things that are things have been made about CRT and everything, but right. Expand on that as far as the sexual grooming of children here in Northeast ISD through these curriculums.
Absolutely. The Draw the Line, Respect the Line has multiple role plays where it continuously promotes illegal activity between children and possibly, adults, if you just expand upon that. If they go through life thinking, well, it's okay because I learned about it in school, it just opens the door for everything. So they're doing the hard work of all the terrible groomers for them. They're not even, it's mind-boggling to hear that the students would have to stand up and boldly these things, say these things.
Right.
Embarrassing it is.
So for people who are watching, what would be so a 13-year-old with a 17-year-old would be against the law, right? Sexual intercourse, right? Because the 17-year-old is considered an adult, and so the 17-year-old could be in high school.
What's going on in that situation? Is that
right.
an appropriate situation?
Right.
We're talking about things that are just,
So the role play in the curriculum that has been existing, Draw the Line, Respect the Line, and for middle school and big decisions in high school, both are out the door, and that kind of stuff. That grooming is looks like it's going to be cease and desist, and which is great news for parents and for San Antonio Family Association and Kelly Greshel, the Patrick Von Dolan parent, all parents and children in the Northeast side. We're ecstatic about, and this is a culmination of a lot of hard work, a lot of time gone in since 2015 to bring about important, critical changes to Northeast IC for the protection of Texas children.
And my hat's off to them for really going through the law, understanding it, and absolutely holding every curriculum accountable to it, every piece of it too. And I'm hopeful that these decisions are going to be something that represents not only the law but the decisions of the community.
Yeah. So I'm going to come around real quick, join you. Stand right here with me. So I want to publicly thank Kelly for all her great work, and wouldn't be possible without her work and being in the front line. And so thank you very much, Kelly. And thank you all, the supporters of San Antonio Family Association, Patrick Von Dolan, Kelly Greshel. We want to ecstatically report these things that are on the move, back on the right path. And I want to thank the SHAC members and all the council and the board of trustees that appointed them. It is critical that the board of trustees that do elected by their constituents be the ones appointing the SHAC council members, and that's the biggest decision to change the scene. And this plus of following the law and the parameters set that agreed upon. And so for more information, go to SanAntonioFamilyAssociation.com, Facebook and Instagram, San Antonio Family Association, Twitter, @SafeAFamily. So thank you very much for your time and attention. Thanks for watching us. And thank you, Kelly, very much. Have a great night. Happy Lent.
And then there became more concerns about the actual